out there now. We can get into this now. It's the MVP tracker and where we're at with this. And everybody was on the Josh Allen train, and you guys and everybody in the fucking chat was giving me the Josh Allen narrative. But I thought for this show we'd do something a little bit fun here. So I actually was spewing over this, and I've heard a few takes. So I went over to Chat GPT here, and I basically punched in, and I was like, okay, obviously the award isn't just based on stats alone, but what would the main criteria be for figuring out how someone is given the MVP award? So it basically spit out a couple of these things. I'm like, give me the check boxes, all right? When we're going through who's going to be the MVP. So one was impact of team success, first and foremost. And I think this was the strongest point you guys had for Josh Allen, right? Was the impact on his team and what he's been able to do with the lack of weapons and things like that, right? So that was huge. So that was number one. Two would be statistical dominance. Now, we know Lamar is leading over Josh Allen in stats, and that's kind of been the one fault is he's not there. Like even Joe Burrow's ahead of both of them at the same time. So we go through that. That's number two. Then number three, positional value. We know that quarterbacks are obviously they're going to be given the MVP award.
QB award.
Then four, you got clutch performance. So when I look at the performances that have happened this year, I wouldn't say anyone stands out specific, but Josh Allen does have the massive win over the Chiefs, which is the only loss that team has all season, right? But then you look over at Baltimore's side and it's like, okay, have they really won any big games? Like they lost to the Eagles, things like that. They finally beat the Steelers. Like this is where he's starting to establish that. And I look at, the performances against the Bengals. Was it necessarily Lamar Jackson? Not really, because he actually fumbled in overtime. And if we didn't miss the kick, we would have won that game. So when I look at the clutch performance, the Ravens are generally winning, and they win. He's never really had a big comeback clutch performance per se, except if it's against the fucking Bengals, of course. But that's the difference maker. And I look at Josh Allen's side of things. I'm like, okay, did he have any clutch performances outside of like that Chiefs game that stands out? But that's the big one, right?
Yeah,
like he hasn't really beat any other
the fact that they were
teams.
in on that Rams game late definitely is the big wow. That was also his big 6 touchdown game.
Didn't win it though.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that it's like they're definitely feeding that, right? And then the snow game against the Niners, like there's been storylines that have fit very well throughout the season. You had made a whole big thing about that play of the year last year at the ESPYs with Lamar Jackson, pick it, throw it, grab it, run it, and do what you got to do there. As the play of the year, right? Already on hand before I even say what the play of the year is going to be this year. And doesn't that tie perfectly with the MVP conversation? So
we'll get to that. Let me continue with my list.
Go ahead.
So
go and do your thing.
We talked about clutch performance. Now 5, we got consistency. Who's been the most consistent? I would probably say Josh Allen has. Lamar has his dips, and I think that's the only reason he's not in this leading conversation is because of the inconsistency with some games, right? Like Josh Allen's they've just kind of been like doing their thing. Although that last game, the last game. That was it.
What happened there, pal?
So there you got consistency. And then next up, number 6, we get team context and support. So the MVP should ideally be the most valuable player on a team that is competitive, but they also need to shine even if their team isn't full of talent. Now for this, Josh Allen side of things, I've argued this countless times. Lamar is on one of the best fucking teams every goddamn year. Every year. And you look at the stats, everyone's like, oh, Lamar Jackson's stats this year. I'm like, why do you think he's doing better? I don't know. Stick Derek fucking Henry beside him in the backfield. Takes a lot of pressure off a guy like Lamar to do shit, right? Yeah. So there you go. So when I look at that, that's a Josh Allen thing. He's clearly elevated his team, and he doesn't have the same supporting cast as Lamar. And then the last one being narrative and storyline, which is what you just hit on there.
God,
meaning, what is the narrative? What's going on? It's been the Josh Allen thing, but now it's like it's getting eerily close. I looked at the odds.
Yeah.
It's getting tight. So these last 2 games for Josh Allen, I think he's going to start to like, just because it's creeping in, I think he's going to go Superman mode these last couple of games because that shit happened. Like he came out with the press conference and he was like, oh, you got to be careful. You don't want to show anyone shit like that. Like his fucking O-line got him an MVP chain.
Yeah, I saw that too.
For Christmas. This motherfucker has to ball out here at the end to secure that MVP vote.
Yeah.
So I just had to do that because you look at the narratives today and tons of people are on the Lamar train.
Yeah.
And I just, I watched before we did our show, Ryan Clark sit there and he's talking about Lamar Jackson. And he's saying he was equating this MVP race for Josh Allen to essentially when Charles Barkley won the MVP in the NBA, basically because it's like, hey, we've given Michael Jordan the MVP every year. We're going to give it to somebody else. It's the voter fatigue, right? Where it's like, hey, fuck, like Lamar has gotten MVP twice now. Like we got to give it to someone else.
Yeah.
So I had to go and pull that up just for the people because we've been arguing the MVP stuff all year long. So this is going to be a tight one, man. Josh has to ball out here.
So we got another 3-peat potential then, is what we're saying.
It's 2 potentially.
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah. No, we'll see. I think that's honestly the Lamar Jackson narrative is kind of coming on strong. And it's honestly, it should, because the way that he's been playing in the last couple of games here and throughout the season, like you said, he's putting up more numbers this year than he did last year. Right, there is definitely a reason why when you stick Derrick Henry instead of Gus Edwards,
massive.
Like it's a big fucking difference.
It is a huge difference.
But in the same light of it, I think the biggest part to me is then the conversation about, okay, are you building your team up or is your team fucking rocking already? And I still run with the Josh Allen narrative on that. Like it's the same thing to why Lamar last year got his credit, right? In my opinion. Like we're talking Lamar Jackson building himself into that narrative on his own in a lot of ways, right? And now you have Josh Allen doing the exact same thing this year. And I think that's what got people jaded a bit is like, they're all like, oh, well, fuck, Lamar's doing better than last year. How can he not win it? And then everyone's like, well, you got a good team. You got to fuck it. The things are coming along here. And then Josh Allen's like, yeah, I lost Stephen Diggs. Go fuck yourself. Like, it's like, this is how it goes. Yeah. So
they lost a lot of guys, even on the defensive side of the ball too. Like, and their team is just, they've played great. Now, I was dissecting the schedule and looking at things like that. I'm like, they haven't really played a lot of teams over 500 or playoff level teams. And is just trying to put together an argument for this stuff, not in the sense of like who's going to win, just to, compare the two and contrast them. But statistically, Lamar's having a great season. But based on this criteria here, you look at it and you check those boxes. It's like, man, okay, I can see this is tight. Is Lamar